So we want piece, piece H, which is the skirt front. Just adjust this. There we go. Okay, so we want piece H, which is the skirt front. This one here. Okay, that's just where I've had to lengthen it slightly. And then we want piece, the pocket facing, which is piece I think. Okay, so that's that one. So we're literally right sides together. We're going to piece that onto there. Just let me check that is right side yet. My sides of my fabric are so similar, so it's difficult to tell. And you've got a notch along the edge of your pocket facing and your side front there, and your front piece there. So we'll pin that in place first. It's cold here today in the UK. It's first frosty morning. Right, okay, so we're going to stitch down there. Seam allowance, I think. A stitch down there, centimetre seam allowance on both sides, and then we're going to understitch it, I believe. Yeah, so I'm going to stitch down there, centimetre seam allowance, then that will fold over, press the seam allowance towards the pocket, and then I'm going to understitch down there. So I'll show you when I've done that, what that looks like. Okay, so which side. So that's my pocket facings sewn on. I did overlock the edge. You don't have to, it doesn't say to, but I just, sometimes it stops the fraying of your garment. So I've stitched that seam, I did overlock my edge, and then I've understitched. So you're just stitching and understitching, you're just stitching down the pocket facing side, just close to the edge there, so that when the pocket folds in, it naturally folds over to the wrong side, so you don't have a visible seam stitching on the outside. So that's the pocket facings. Now we're going to attach the pocket bags to the pocket facings. That way round. So that way round. So literally going to join the pocket bag, which is piece J, okay, this one here, to the pocket facing. So we're just going to line up that curved edge and just essentially stitch around that curved edge to attach those two together. So I'm just going to pin around that curved edge line. Just trying to keep my fabric edges together if I can. A bit mobile. There we go. Okay, so just around there, so not to the dress, just loose along the pocket curve there. So we're going to stitch that around, and then we're going to neaten the seam allowance, just as I say, just the pocket pieces together, not to the skirt. Okay, so I'm going to do that on both sides, neaten the edges, and then I'll show you how we just align that, and we're going to align that and baste that along the top. But let's sew these first. Okay, so we've got our pocket sewn like so. Okay, so that's our pocket edge sewn around there. So I've stitched that at 1 centimetre and then overlocked the edge, and then that just turns under like so, just over to the wrong side. So then you need to align these edges here, so it should just naturally sit flat there. I'll try and match my checks if I can. I'll just over a wee bit. And then we're just going to pin along the top there. So just to pin that pocket, I'll show you in a minute, pin that pocket to the top sort of waistband bit of your skirt, waistline of your skirt piece. That's that one. And then also down the side here. So again, I'm just going to have a look at where my wrong at the top. Yeah, I've got that. Let's get this one done first. So let's put that in there first. I've got that over too far. Right, so I'm going to pin that there. So that notch, you'll have notches on your skirt edge and also on your pocket edges, so that they will line up there at the side. Okay, I've got this quite right at the top here. Let's do another look. Other side went in perfect. Right, there's my notches. Let's go back there. It's okay. Notch joins up in the centre there. Let's line that up. Ease to get in on this side. For some reason, the other side's fine. There we go. Let's just. These are my checks. I just want to see if I can get it lined up at the pocket edge. That's all. It down, as I say, attach it all at the sides there, and then attached along the top as well. Okay, just exactly as I did that side satin, much easier. Okay, so I'm going to go and base stitch those in places, so just a longer stitch on your machine within the seam allowance, just to hold those in place, ready for when we attach the side seams of the skirt, and also the waistband casing will be next to attach to the top of the skirt piece, and then attaching it to the bodice top. So I'm going to go and base those in place first, and also at the same time I'm going to stitch my drawstring casing. So that's pieces K, it's piece K and piece L. Okay, so you've got your back piece casing at the bottom there, and then I've just overlaid the front casing, which is in two pieces, and they both join, so they both got a notch where they join, the ends with the notch joined together like so. Okay, so those will join together at those side seams. Alright, so I'm going to join those, just stitch those at 1 centimetre seam allowance and press those open. And also it wants you to, on the front edge of the casing, so your front edge, this one here without the notch, it just wants you to turn under 1/4 inch and then edge stitch that in place, okay, because that will be where the, once you stitch that on, that will be where the drawstring comes out of. Okay, so that needs to be stitched over and stitched in place. So I'm going to do all those and then prepare the casing to put on the top of the skirt. Okay, so I've basted across the top there and down the sides there for the pockets on both sides. I've attached the casing together there, press those seams open, and then it wants you to press up 6 millimeters, 1/4 inch, all the way along the unnotched edge of your drawstring casing piece. Okay, so all along the unnotched edge, you'll have some little notches in the top of that edge. And then also we just need to attach the back of the skirt to the front of the skirt. So the skirt back is piece N, this piece there. Okay, so we're going to attach that down the side seams and just sew the side seams there of the skirt piece. That's right sides together there, pinned in place. I'll do the other side in a minute. I'll stitch those and then we can attach the casing piece to the top of the skirt. You do that before you attach it to the bodice. Okay, so I've stitched my side seams, overlocked them and some threads there. Overlocked them and then press them towards the back of the skirt. Those little threads. Right, press towards the back of the skirt. Okay, so next we're going to, so that's how your skirt's looking at the moment. Pockets in there. Okay, so next we're going to attach, baste our waistband casing in place. So you want the wrong side of your waistband casing to the right side of your fabric, so that the edge you folded under is going to be stitched down in a minute along there, so making the casing. Okay, so you can see that, so that's how you want to pin it in place, so you've got it that way round, so your folded under edge is on the right side of your fabric there. So that's half of the back done, and then I'll show you the front. So I'm trying to match up my checks as I go along, just because I've got a check fabric. Nothing like a challenge, is there? So that one there. See if I can get those nicely lined up. You do have notches along the front as well to line up, but I'm just concentrating on my checks really at the moment to make sure they sit correctly. Underline. Okay, so that's the front half done. So I'm going to do the same with the other half, and then what we're going to do is we're going to base stitch around the top of the waistband here, so that that stays together when we attach it to the bodice. And then it wants you to edge stitch along this lower edge along here, attaching that to the skirt. So I'm just going to have to be careful as I align that as I go along, to make sure I try and get those checks lined up. So that's what I'm going to do next, and then I believe, yeah, then we attach it to the bodice part, and then we do the bottom tier. Okay. Okay, so that's the casing all sewn on. Okay, so that's casing sewn all the way around there. Okay, so now we're going to attach the bodice to the skirt. So if you turn your skirt inside out, skirt piece inside out like that. I'm just going to angle the camera up a bit. bodice piece we want to put inside. So you want to make sure you get your front lining up with your front. So that's my front piece there, and that's the front of my skirt. So that just wants to go up inside there. I didn't mark the front, centre front. So undo my basting threads. I've just caught my seam allowance over to the wrong side. Yeah, okay. So I want that going towards the back. And then side seam there. Centre front. That's that side. So I'm going to pin that all the way around, stitch around at 1 centimetre, and then overlock the edges and then press it up towards the bodice. And then we're going to make the frill for the bottom tier. Okay, for the skirt. So we'll do that next. I'll go and stitch this first. Okay, so I've stitched. Oh, so that's attached. That's the front. So we've attached the skirt piece to the bodice. I've overlocked the seam and then pressed it up towards the bodice. Now it doesn't say to do this, but I prefer to then run a row of top stitching round, just to help secure that seam to stay facing up towards the bodice. Otherwise sometimes I find it sort of flips down and gets in the way. So that's just my preference to do that. So I've done that. So put that to one side. Now we just need to sort out the ruffle. It should come in 4 pieces, but my fabric was wide enough to cut it in 2, so I just omitted the seam allowance along the centre of the ruffle, okay, and then cut it on the fold. So I've just got 2 pieces to sew together now, but if you've done it and cut it as 4, then you just join all 4 together. So it wants you to press the seams open, so I've overlocked my edges to neaten those edges first, and then you're literally just going to pin them together at the side seams. As I say, if you've got a chat fabric like mine, then it's just worth just lining up those checks if you can. Leave that there. So I'm going to stitch these side seams and then a centimetre seam allowance and then press them open. As I say, if you've cut it into 4, then you'll stitch all 4 seams, just creating a circle, a sort of like a cylinder of your fabric. Alright, so I'm going to sew those and then press the seams open, and then I'm going to put gathering stitches around the top. So I'm going to do it in quarters, so that it's easier. So I haven't got a seam in the centre front because I cut it on the fold, so I'm just going to put a little snip so I know where the centre is. So I'm going to do 2 rows on each piece, but I'm going to do a single layer of fabric. I'm going to do from the side seam to the centre, from the centre to the side seam, centre, centre to side seam. 2 rows of gathering stitches on each, so that's just a long stitch on one machine. Use a 4 or 5 stitch length, and then we can gather that onto the dress, but I might actually do the hem first. So yeah, I think I might stitch the hem first rather than do it later. Yeah, I think I might. And I'm going to overlock it around the edge and then just fold it up once. I prefer doing that than having it more of a, it just creates more layers, so I just prefer to do that where it's quite, you know, swishy full. Okay, I'll go and stitch that. Okay, so I've stitched those side seams. Okay, those seams to join it together, and press the seam open, and then overlocked around the edge, and I just turned up mine once and have stitched around. I prefer to do that when it's more of a sort of fluid hem. Sometimes I find if you've turned it over twice, there's a little bit of substance to this fabric and it might just stop the swish of it, so I prefer to just turn it up once. And then I've done 2 rows of gathering stitches, and I just want to make sure I've got the centre marked on there. And have I got the centre marked on there? Yes, I have. So as long as I've got the centre marked on both of those. So then you want to put it right sides together. So I'm going to turn this one in the wrong way out and have this the right way out. So I've got the skirt piece the right way out, and then I've turned the frill wrong side out. Get it the right way. That's it, right that way. So I'm going to join the centre front first of all with that one there. And we're going to join the side seam there. Make sure that's going back. Yeah. Oops. Oh, I can't get hold of it on fingers and thumbs. Join the side seam to this one here. Oh, pin the 2 fronts together. Okay. Right, and then we want that. So I hemmed my I'm not sure what they call it, flounce, frill, whatever, at the bottom. Frill it is, isn't it? Not flounce. So I did hem mine now before attaching it to the dress, because I find that's easy. I know the length. I'm quite happy with whatever length it is, because I wanted it sort of longer, a bit more midi length. If you wanted to check the length, then obviously you'll need to attach it and then hem it, but I prefer to hem it now. It's just easier rather than having all the dress attached as well. So once you've got those 4 pieces like that, so attached at the side seams and then attached at the middle, then we can start gathering up the so we've got right sides together, and we're just going to gather up that frill. So just going to get the bobbin threads, that one and that one, get hold of those and then just pull that along, gather up your skirt. So it's quite a bit together. So do you like gathering or you don't like gathering? I'm not a great fan of gathering, but sometimes I like the effect it has. Yeah. But I'm not a fan of gathering. So that's a little bit over gathered, so let's just get some of that back out. Now too much. So that's about right. So once I've got the amount of gather I need, so that my gathered up edge meets my once my gathered up edge roughly sort of correlates and matches up with my edge there that I want it to gather into, I just hook it round, figure of 8 around the pin I've got on the edge, on the end, on the seam there, so that I can then start manipulating my gathers in a minute. So I'm going to do the other side first because it is in one continuous length. I'm just going to wind around that pin. Just usually get right around there, just so it holds those. It should do. Okay, so now I think we'll gather up that, we'll even out those gathers for that side. Okay, so that's that one. So I'm going to do that all the way around and then stitch that around at a centimetre seam allowance and then overlock the edges, and then I think it is just to put the tie through. Okay, tie through the cord channel bit that we've made around the waistband. Okay. Okay, so that's the skirt frill put on the bottom. Okay, so I've just sewn that around, overlocked the edge, and then pressed it up towards the skirt piece. So just press the seam allowance up towards the skirt piece there. Okay, so that's all done. So the only bit left to do now is to do the put the tie through. So you're just going to put a safety pin in the end of the tie and then literally thread it around through here. I'm going to thread that all through there, all through around to the other side. And I'm going to put some, these are just some end stops I've got there, so I've just knotted the end, and you can pull that down onto it and I'll trim that bit off. Just makes the end a little nicer, but it does just say you can knot them, which is also fine. So I'll thread that through and show you when I've done that. Okay, so that's the dress all finished. Oops, let's just lay it down so you can see a bit better like that. Okay, so yeah, so that's the top part. I'll get some photos of me wearing it so that'll be easier. So that's the top part. That's the tie through the middle there. I've just put the ends on there, and then that's the frill at the bottom. Okay, so I'll get some pictures of me wearing that, and then I'll upload the video for you guys. So I hope it just, if you decide to make the dress, I hope it just helps someone with their sewing. And also, if you like watching the videos, bring out a monthly make each month. So if you could like and subscribe, then you'll be notified of when we bring out the next sew along, and also it helps for other people to see it, and maybe it'll help them too. Okay, thank you. So this is our monthly make. It's the Friday Pattern Company Davenport dress, made up in our two-tone check twill by Mind the Maker fabrics. And yeah, I did do the frills on the sleeves, And yeah,